Hi. Welcome, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming. It's absolutely incredible to see you all. We've had such a nice weekend so far, haven't we?
Yes.
So we hope you have too. Yeah, whether you come from far or just in South Malton, it's just brilliant to all be able to get together again. This is the John Arbon Textiles Mill Open Weekend. For anyone who doesn't know, you all probably do because you found it. So, my name is Sonja, and I work for John Arbon Textiles.
I work for you then?
Not yet. In about 3 weeks, maybe, John. I work for John Arbon Textiles at the moment, and Helena and I are in the middle of buying the mill of John and Juliet, which is very exciting. So, thank you. So, what I do at the mill is all the kind of marketing. I organise events like this one you've all come to, and I also help develop kind of new yarns, new colours, things like that. And then next to me is John, who probably doesn't need much of an introduction, but I'll let him do one anyway.
Well, hello, and I'm John Arbon, and I set up John Arbon Textiles some 22 years ago, and to the mill that we have today, and I can see a few faces that have been on the tour. I'm sort of mill owner, or was. Well, remain to be for about another 3 weeks, I think, so there we go. Okay.
Hello there, I'm Andrew from North Bank Wool. I'm a wool merchant and wool agent looking after some of John's purchases, working very much in the background, sourcing raw materials from wool, silk, alpaca. I think that's about it really.
I'm Aaron Chilcott. I work for British Wool in South Malton. I'm the head grader. So my job is to grade the fleeces as they arrive in the depot. They're chucked on the table and I test them for quality, strength, micron count, and all that's just done by touch, feel and look and experience really. It's something that you learn, you can't just do it. It's all about the feel and touch. It's a very good job to be in, but it's also very, very hot and messy. And smelly, but very rewarding.
Cool. Yeah.
I mean, we could just do it off mic a bit.
Yeah, we can. Can you hear us if we're off mic?
Is that easier?
Yeah. Should we just shout?
Should we just shout at you?
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that all right
I
with
feel
you?
better about the
Chris?
mic now.
Yeah. Okay.
We don't like the mic.
It's too much pressure with the mic.
Yeah, I think
Put the mic away.
Mic's down. Okay, so I thought we'd start off. I mean, Aaron's, he's working a weekend here and he's got to do his job again. Aaron. But he foolishly agreed that he would go through a fleece pretty much like he does at the wool board on a daily basis. But he's going to talk you through it, and the idea being is you stop Aaron and ask, what are you doing, or what's that? Any questions you got, the whole point of this is far away, okay? Because this guy knows his stuff. You can't learn this overnight, so ask away.
Why don't you tell everyone how long it takes to become?
Well, it took 5 years for me to train. There's no book so you can read. It is just literally seeing wool, millions of kilos. At the depot we grade between 2 million kilos and 3 million kilos of wool. Every fleece is hand graded. Whether the farmer keeps 20 sheep or 10,000, every fleece is graded to the same quality. So it took me 5 years to train. My boss, my ex-boss, Mike, had been doing the job 40 years. He learned the same way. Along the way, there is sort of tests and that. The senior graders will sort of check on your knowledge, but it's down to you to pretty much just grade as much wool as possible. And our main aim is to try and maximise the return for the farmer. So by grading the wool into better quality, when it goes to be sold, it can achieve a better price at auction. Separating the poorer qualities. If it was all just chucked in together, then it would all be pretty worthless. It all depends on the end use for the fleece, really. So I'll start by just what I normally do. obviously not with everyone staring like this, but so basically there'd probably be 25 to 30 fleeces in a bag, rolled like that, chucked on the table. So my first job is basically you look at the bag, you can normally tell straight away by the colour. If it's a creamy white colour, that's normally a good sign. You can put it into what we call number 1 grade, which is the better price. If the colour starts to go, then you're sort of looking to sort of downgrade it, if you like. So it's all about sort of using your eyes first of all anyway. So I would look at this fleece. So the fleece is covered with these things here, which are called staples.
It's a lovely colour, by the way.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I picked that a good fleece
No, it's
actually.
not. One more like that.
No, I did find a good one. So this here is a staple. So what I'm doing for, really, is testing the strength of it. So if it's a good staple, hasn't got any break in it, that means that when it goes on to the next stage of after grading, yeah, it's going to be a good fleece for what you need.
So you're checking for the tender?
Checking for the tender in it.
And why would it have a break?
It could probably have a break, maybe because through lambing,
For stress.
trauma and stress, and what will happen then is basically the staple will stop growing and there'll be a natural break line and it will just break like that. Therefore the staple's not that solid, so again it's all about trying to put it in the right place, because once it leaves our depot, I mean the wool's sold in 8,000 tonne lots, so we have to make sure that everything we do is right, because we don't want any comebacks. That's a lot of wool to come back if somebody's had a bad day and they just fancy chucking it where they want.
So how many fleeces is that?
How big a fleece?
How 8,000
8,000 kilos of one particular grade.
is how many fleeces?
What do they weigh, about 3-4 kilos?
Yeah, so an average fleece will weigh 2 kilos.
Do the math.
So once we've graded a certain amount of wool, it will go to be packed in a machine which then compresses wool down. We bag it and wrap it and write the grade number on. That bale will weigh 350 kilos roughly, maybe a bit heavier. So there'll be 23 bales of one particular grade in a lot that's going to go for sale, and that accounts to about 8.5 tonne. So
how many staples across a fleece would you take? How many?
Would
you unroll it, spread the whole thing
no,
out?
I would literally test a couple, but I mean I'd probably, you're talking, because we have to grade probably about 5 tonne a day each grader, and there's 4 of us to try and keep up with the amount of wool that's coming in. Yeah. So I would probably do it sort of check. So fine, gone, chucked it in a basket. Yeah, it's literally that quick.
And that's because of your experience. You can literally go like that.
Literally, yeah. I mean, you can generally tell when looking at a fleece if it's good, just because of the colour. I mean, you would just give it a quick test, and like I said, again, it's just experience and just being able to see something and just, you know.
So first it's visual and then it's the length and the strength.
Yeah. It is visual, and then, like I said, a quick test of the staple, it's solid, and then I'll chuck it, and then I've got another 29 fleeces to grade. So I've got to be methodical, but also, you know, very important that I do it right, because obviously, like I said, the comeback on that is going to cost the depot a lot of money. So every grader there has had the same training, and it's pretty intense when you're learning, to be fair. It is, but yeah.
How many classifications in grading?
How many different grades?
How many different grades, yeah.
Well, in this country we have over 60 different breeds of sheep, which is the most in the world. So at our depot I would probably say there are between 75 and 80 different grades, and it all depends on the area. We've got 8 other depots, so we'd have some wool down here that they wouldn't necessarily have up in Scotland or North England, because of obviously the area that the farmers are in and how the sheep suit that land, if you like.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll pass around this, because this is a staple, you can just have a feel and just feel how greasy and...
Well, sometimes can you tell by the farm name as well, on the back when it was in it?
Yeah,
Where's that dodgy farm again?
I mean, they will put breed information
on the bale.
But that doesn't necessarily account where that fleece is going to go.
No.
You know.
Well, they give you an indication what breed.
It will give you if say you had a Suffolk which will carry black, which is a black face, black legged animal. So you know if you have wool from a Suffolk, it's probably going to contain grey fibre, and that will just be spread across the fleece sometimes really heavy and black. So again, it's just sort of,
What happens to that then if it's got like a...
it's a different grade. So obviously, because once then the fiber's got to be dyed after it. So if it's an all white fleece, is fine. They'll still use it. They'll still have to dye it probably. But when a fleece has got, say, grey fibre and that in, again, it's limited for use and how much it's going to cost to get it to that next stage of what the customer or what the buyer wants for. So
Have the grades got different names, or are they numbered, or...?
they're all numbered.
So it's a number that's allocated?
Yeah, basically. I mean, there are breeds that, so for instance, a 205 is a Dorset Horn or a Polled Dorset. So there are breeds that have their own grade, but it doesn't necessarily mean that fleece is going to go in there. We grade to type, so where's the best place for that fleece to go? Because like I say, it's not, we're doing a small part, and then the next process along that is what it's going to be turned into, whether it's going to be a knitting yarn, whether it's going to be used for a carpet, whether it's going to be used in bedding, furnishings, apparel. So it all depends on, like I say, getting this right the first time, and then hopefully it just goes smooth down the line.
What kind is that one? What breed is that?
This is off the Exmoor mule, funny enough.
It's what we call our Exmoor Blueface,
Yeah.
which is a 473, I believe.
It's a 473, yeah. So some of you might have some socks. I know I do.
I haven't got a pair on. 473 socks.
So John will, throughout the year, will say, I want a small 3-ton lot of a certain amount of wool, certain type, and then when that comes, we grade it, keep it back, and then sort of again, we're just trying to help it all run smoothly, what the demand is. A lot of the British wool clip is for carpet wool. I mean, 50% of British wool stays in this country, the other 25% goes to China and then over Europe. So a lot of it is used in carpet in this country.
Yeah. Can I come in from a farming perspective, as
Yeah.
a sheep farmer?
Yeah.
The grading actually starts on the farm. The sheep has to be in a healthy condition to produce a good coat of wool, and you can tell the health of a sheep by its wool. So if that break, the coat goes dry, and if they've been ill, it'll just break off, as you've already said. But when we shear the sheep, which is happening now, the different breeds, we have 5 different breeds. Well, they're all graded by us, the different breeds.
Yeah, you'll separate them and help us out along the line.
And what we think is the right quality for them or whoever we sell to. And then that's the second stage of grading, if you like, for the commercial world.
Yeah, I mean, our job is, we work on behalf of the farmers. British Wool is owned by the farmers, 35,000 members, I think, who bring the wool to British Wool. Our job is to try and create as much revenue from this fleece as we can to give back to them. We understand how hard it is for farmers, what they go through. They work 24/7, 7 days a week. So we try and do our best to try and maximise the return for them. But it's what British Wool is all about, really.
Yeah. And the reason you grade by type or by feel rather than by breed is because there's actually quite a big variation within breeds, like the age of the sheep really matters.
Pretty much. Within the UK, there's so many variations on wool, and so like, lost it there. So when wool sort of contains these, what we call Kempi fibres, they're very brittle and they don't dye easy. So you'll find this in a lot of Welsh mountain wool, which is why it's not so valuable, because again, the cost of processing it and what they can use it for at the end limits on what you can do with it. So, but ultimately, that's it. Yeah, my job is to try and create as much value in this. I mean, yeah, if you just dumped it all in one bag and just chucked it in, it's obviously not going to be. You got to sort of take care of it, because, like I said, the farmers take care of it. We try our best to take care of it, and then hopefully that reflects at the end when they get the money for it. Although the price isn't overly great at the moment because of COVID and everything. Everything was shut down for 18 months. Cruise ships, hotels, which is a big part of where British Wool sells their carpets on cruise liners. Everything you can think of, hotels and hospitality, really got hit, and then obviously that affected us. We didn't get as much wool in, so therefore we're not doing the volume that we should do, so it had a really big knock-on effect for us. But hopefully moving forward, we're looking the price is steadily going up, which is, it's never going to be like it was 50 years ago, where I've had farmers come in and say, my wool check paid for the rent on a farm for a year, or I bought a tractor with my which, and I think that's a lot down to man-made fibres.
Time, 20 years.
Yeah, it's,
Hopefully.
people can go and buy 4 t-shirts or a jumper for 5-6 quid. Why spend 50-60 pounds on something when you can get, so it's that kind of chuck away, throw away fashion, isn't it really? It's trying to change people's mindsets into invest in something that's going to cost you a bit more money, but in the long run it's going to benefit. But it's like I said, it's a mindset. It's trying to change. It's no different to going to the butcher's to buy your meat if you can, as opposed to buying it at the supermarket.
Do you think a lot of it is the care of wool as well? Because how many people standing there have to wash it anymore? I mean, we're about to go back to that actually, I've got to put the washer on. How many people that stand, I mean, we both work about 40-50 hours a week, standard. I ain't coming home from work hand washing over it, even though I love a wool jumper.
Do you want to take it?
The majority of people are probably not even going to be able to know how to adapt to them.
No, again, it's almost sort of trying to educate people and telling about the advantages. It's sustainable. It's a natural product. Everyone can sort of use it a little bit. I think we'll be in a better position.
I think Amanda had an answer to that, didn't you?
Well, I wash all my jumpers
Yeah.
by hand. But they only need doing maybe once a year.
Yeah, exactly. If you're
Wear them,
using
wear them,
non-machine
don't
washable
You just wear your
wool,
jumpers, that's what you
Yeah. Same with socks.
The problem is the washing machine as well. The washing machine is designed to bloody do it quickly and destroy fine fibres.
but things
It
don't
doesn't
really
do-
get dirty.
No,
If
they
it's
don't. But if you,
unsuperwashed, you
what the
just
problem is,
give it
the
a
washing
whack.
machine needs redeveloping into a slow wash, slow
Are you
fill,
gonna do that
slow.
next?
That's my project.
Right.
The ultimate slow, environmentally friendly wool care jumper that you can put in the morning, take it off at the end of the day, and you don't have to sit there for hours.
A lot of them have hand wash cycles now.
Yeah, but it's still the way it works. The machine is wrong. It should be gently.
You've got to go back
Move.
to the top loading.
Yeah, top loaders completely, not rotating the drums. Yeah. I mean, the spin is there just to sort of get rid of the water quickly. You need to drain off and then press it slowly.
It's that agitation, isn't it, by the spin that creates it?
Agitation creates the soap molecules to capture the dirt and lift it off over time. All you're doing with the washing machine is trying to speed that process up as quickly as possible, because that's what you want. Quick. And all it's doing is destroying textiles.
That's the good old hot point that did that.
What, the top loaders?
Top loaders.
Yeah. So it's got to go back to that. I am going to design it. Everybody's going to have an Arbon washer for their jumpers.
I'll bring my jumpers.
What's joking?
Do you know at this stage when you get it, what sheep dips they've been through, etc.? So
You
you
can
have organic piles.
Yeah, I mean you can tell if the sheep have been dipped because it's quite a strong pungent smell, and it will wash out, but it will have to, once it's left us and it's gone to the scouring plant, it will have to be put through more washes than what they would normally do for a wool that hasn't been dipped or stained.
So this is where your knowledge of the farmer helps, because you know with
I
farming
think,
methods.
so I think I've been there for 16 years now, so you tend to recognise faces or as much as I can. I mean, I think we deal with over sort of 5,000 or 6,000 farmers members. We cover sort of anywhere from, we cover Cornwall, from South Gloucester right up to about Surrey and Hampshire and all that bit, so it's quite a big area. Yeah, well into Hampshire.
To be fair, you don't dip sheep in the wool, you dip them after they've been sheared. So the only residue you have there is what's there from the year before. So
I remember reading an article in the spinning magazine about sore hands that some people were getting depending on chemicals that have been used in the sheep. I don't know how old that article was, but
No, we definitely see fleeces that have been sheep that have been dipped with their wool on. I know they shouldn't do, but we definitely get, and it is a very strong. You wouldn't want to stand there all day with it because it's quite a very strong pungent smell.
It's not particularly good for your health, is it?
No, it makes you a bit lightheaded.
Been nice knowing you, Aaron.
But again, it's probably few and far between. I think this is probably more on a bigger commercial side of it, where the farmer's probably got 3,000 or 4,000 sheep. You know, I think sort of the smaller ones probably wouldn't necessarily do that practice. I don't think, from my experience, what I've seen.
Just going to show big 8
Well, it's just volume, maybe not as much care and just more volume.
It's not about the size of the flocks of sheep, it's about where they're kept,
Yeah.
and the environment they're kept. We would keep quite a few sheep, but we're on uplands, Dartmoor, so we don't need to dip because we don't get the flies.
No.
And a lot of people don't dip anyway, but they use the pour-ons now, which again I think you can smell a bit.
Yeah.
So why do you dip sheep? Show the roots.
Because they get fly strike, the maggots will kill them, and that's a real way to.
So what is it?
The flies, they eat the wool in the summer when it's really hot, in the early summer before they're shorn. They sweat basically, and then the flies love that warm damp, and they lay their eggs, and then they turn into maggots, and then they start eating through the fleece and then into the skin. It's not nice.
Look it up on Google if you can bear to watch it. You literally can lift the back of the skin of the animal up and it's just crawling.
Yeah, it's like alive.
So they're being eaten alive underneath.
I think this actually segues quite well onto Andrew and the work you do. You've come up with an inadvertent segue. It's your turn.
No, you're going to get Andrew on the table because he's got a bit of fly strike.
So from the marketing board, when they've done all their preparations, and they do a very good job because they've got all the wool coming in from all the different farms, and it comes in with quite condensed time as well, doesn't it? So
Yeah, I mean, we take wool throughout the year, but obviously
what's the majority of the time?
it's June, August, September is our busy time where we try and intake as much wool because our job, we want it, you know, farmers want it off the farm into us so we can grade it in its best possible condition.
And as well, the reason why you do a good job as well is because you look after a lot of the small growers as well.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, I say, whether you've got 20 sheep, 200 sheep or 2,000, the wool is graded exactly the same way, so.
Yeah. So then when it's all packed up, it goes into an auction. And like you said before, it goes into normally the lot's around about 8,000 kilos, although there are small lots that you can buy. So what we do is...
Yeah, small lots.
small, that's right. So small lots are like 2,000 kilos, 3,000 kilos, but normally they're in the bigger lots. Mainly because people, sometimes if they want to say export them, and they want to do them in 24 tons, so they'll take 3 lots and put them on a wagon or 3 lots and put them in a container. So that's the reason why they do the 8-ton lots. It's just to help on the cost of transport. So normally every 2 weeks there's an auction. So the marketing board, they produce a catalogue, and in the catalogue we've got all the lot numbers, and next to them we've got all the lot details. So there'll be like this one here, there'll be a 473, 8,000 kilos, and then there might be, like say, there might be a Dorset horn or an Exmoor horn or all the different breeds in the catalogue. And it used to be to buy the wool, which is what, as an auction buyer, is what we do. And we used to go to like a room like this, and there'd be an auctioneer at the front, and then they'd shout lot 1, and then there'd be a shout a price out, and it'd go 50, 51, 52, and then it'd be knocked down to the highest bidder, and then you'd go on to the next lot. But because of but in recent times they've gone into a computerised system, so it'd be all in the auction room. You'd all have your own computer under your own, and you'd be buying under your own name, and you'd compete. There'd be a big screen, and then they'd come up with all the prices up. And then you'd see who would buy it, so it'd be lot number 1 would go to North Bank, number 2 to somebody else, and you'd go through it like that. So you'd all be
giving each
competing.
other daggers when the prices go down, so it's across the room.
Well, depending who it was, sometimes you see the price of not letting that have it. You go.
It's true though, if I walked into the auction room and registered as a bidder, what would happen?
Well, they know you've got plenty of money, so they keep
Well, they would run it, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but that's why I dress like this when I go to the auction. You don't put your best suit on.
No, you're just cheap.
So it's now gone online, so you can be sitting in your own office and but still the details come up who you bid against.
How boring.
Yeah, I mean, it was better when it was open price, so you'd all shout against each other. That was really good with that, especially on a good market when the prices were going up because you wanted to buy early in the catalogue, because you'd start at one price, and if the market was going up, you could pay 10% more at the end. So you'd be all competing. So it was pretty good.
More like real life.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a bit more banter with people, and like I say, it pushed people a little bit if somebody came into the auction and they didn't want to buy and stuff. So, but now, yeah, it's a bit clinical. It's not what it was really. And sometimes, in recent times as well, people like John, instead of buying himself and give an order to like an agent, and they'll do it for them. So you can put your price in, and they'll go to the limit, like you would in any auction. So then you bought your lots, and then after the auction, you get your they send you through the probably about a week after your invoice, and then you pay your invoice, and then the goods are you just look after them, and then what we'll do is we'll send them into scouring. So we'll have all they'll be all washed. The scouring mills, they're all in the UK, based in Yorkshire, and the scouring mills have a capacity. Crikey, I think they can probably easily do 1 million kilos a week of scouring. And some of the scouring machines, it's like when people say to me sometimes, the contact and say, we've got this lot, and we've got quite a lot of fleeces, and we'd like to scour. I say, well, how much have you got? I say, well, we've got 10 fleeces, we've got 3 to keep. And the problem is the machines, on one line you can put 1,000 kilos greasy in an hour, so you'd probably get out 700 kilos scoured wool, of clean wool an hour on one machine. So the problem is with the scouring is you need big lots. You need big lots. I mean, 1,000 kilos is a small lot.
It is a small lot, yeah.
Yeah, and the problem is with the smaller lots is because they're running these big lots of, say, people probably put down 20, 30 tonnes as a scouring lot, even 50 tonnes as a scouring lot. Because, mainly for the carpet industry,
Yeah.
not for
We put lots of the size around about, I don't know, we don't go to 1-on-1, we're doing 2s or something
Yeah,
now.
and it's better.
2.5, 3, and we get a better yield for it as well, and
Yeah.
better quality.
Yes,
I mean, the other thing is, isn't it, the bath system's got to get up and be running properly.
well,
It could be, there's a small lot, tiny lot, it hasn't really got to its right running
No.
setting.
Well, the problem,
It's gone out the end already.
it has.
It's too late.
Yeah, when you've got a smaller lot in, it never comes out the other end.
No. You've got to use a volume already in there in that system, so if you just put a small bit in, you're going to lose more.
And the other problem with the scouring is because it's all about getting the production through as quickly as they can.
Does that take a huge amount of water?
Pardon?
Yeah.
Does that actually take a huge amount of water?
Oh, it does, but on the scouring lines they've got normally the six or 7 bowl system, so you've got the first 4 bowls will be really like wash bowls, so they'll get off the really, really heavy grease. And then the last 2 are normally rinse bowls with the clean water, so it doesn't have that smell. Because otherwise it'll still continue to have quite a strong smell.
Can you reuse that?
Yeah.
And is the water cleanable?
Yeah, what they do is they recycle the water, clean it and put it all back through the system.
Right.
So they do recycle a lot. Yeah, they do recycle a lot. But,
Yeah, there's centrifuge off, is there, the line?
yes, and of course, then they do take the wool grease off by centrifugal, so it's spun and then it'll separate it.
How is storage?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was the price of the land, the wool grease has gone up.
Yeah.
Something else that used to feed fish.
Oh.
Send in South America, some of the what comes off of the wall.
They do, yeah, they do.
Yeah. It extracts vitamin D from the land and it comes out, and then also there's another
For the fish farm.
they send to South America and it feeds prawns or something. It's really bizarre. Yeah. No, but this is actually like fish land that comes off this end, isn't it?
Yeah, the sort of slow.
They have obviously there's a lot of wastage of like the grease and the muck that comes off, and they have 2 massive sort of almost like container skips that they fill up twice a week, and at the moment they're trying to get that to be reused back into farming. And they trialled it on a certain area, and they reckon that the actual growth of, I think, the wheat was probably 30%.
Really?
But to slow it back, yeah. But to try and do that process, it takes a lot of time. It's got to be tested. But actually, they're trying to sort of recycle as much as they can. Really.
Yeah.
With the wool grease also, when they process it into lanolin, and the also goes into like cosmetics as well. So a lot goes into sun creams and things like that.
I'm back a fortune out of that, don't you, on that?
Yeah, in recent years, yeah, and especially because a lot of the processing is not really this part of the world anymore. Yeah, it's been, the price of wool grease has gone up quite a bit. It's got more uses.
And it's probably the cost of processing it. That's why a lot of it is going to China, because they can get away with paying workers a lot less than what you can in this country. And actually, when I went up to the scouring plant, they're struggling to get people to do the free. They need 3 shifts a day. They sort of go 6-7 days a week, don't they? And they're struggling to get people to keep that volume of.
Right.
Was that Chadwick's or?
Where did we go to?
Was it William Bradford?
Yeah.
House
What was it?
How?
Yeah, that's it. Harrow Scouring. That's the one.
What part of Yorkshire is it? Scouring?
Bradford.
West Yorkshire. Yes, West Yorkshire.
I'm from Lancashire. It amazes me. If you need loads of water, there's a lot more water in Lancashire.
So some sort of war going on.
So after it's been scoured, we then send it off to the combing plant to produce it into wool tops, which is done by doing making the fibres parallel, going through the combs, and then we put them into packages of bumps with a hole in the middle. So then the bumps can either go down to John, so you can spin them in white ecru, so you can produce this white yarns or blend them, or and then there's also we produce them into the certain packaging, so we can send them into the dye, into a dye plant, so we can do the dyeing up in Bradford as well. So just make can do quite a range of colours.
Yeah, that's what we do at the mill. So that's how we actually get our bumps dyed. And this is packaged with a hole in it, tightly packed wool, which go into pressure vessels and they dye it. But they're to our exact colours. So we have these bases that we can then blend together and make any colour we like. And that gives you that lovely depth in the actual yarn. So it's not looking so flat with a solid dye, which you'll get if you just dye the yarn. We've got a blend of colour in the yarn. So it looks a bit tweedy and a nice melange colour.
Nice and heavy, which you can get as well.
Yeah. We can do some. Yeah, it gives us such a great scope to do all these different crazy colours and whatever we want to go. It's great fun, isn't it? And
It is, yeah. That's
you love doing that, don't you? Sitting there with your hand carders doing twiddles and all the staff get involved as well. What do you think of this one? I got that. So it's good fun.
The reason I associated Andrew with fly strike as well is not any kind of previous thing, but you get our merino for us, and you get it from the Falklands. So the reason we get our merino from the Falklands, and we really advertise that and talk about it, is because a lot of merino comes from either Australia or China. That's your average. And what they do in those countries to prevent fly strike is they will actually skin the whole back section of the sheep, which is obviously not very humane, and we don't really want to have anything to do with that. So that's called mulesing, and you get our merino for us, and you've been to Falklands,
it's not
visited the farms.
Yeah, the mulesing is, they don't, it's like in the Falkland Islands or South America, because of the climate, they just don't have that need.
My understanding is it's too windy for many flies. Is that
really?
correct? That's what someone's told me.
I'm not so sure about that. Yeah.
But what's it like in the Falklands? Has anyone here been, other than Andrew? No.
If you haven't been, I can tell you anything. It's very much like the Yorkshire Dales. It's very much like it is. I'm joking, yes. It's very much like the Yorkshire Dales, apart from there's hardly any trees. There's hardly any trees, so it always feels very windy. And the majority of the farms, they're all around the coast, because before there was the conflict in '82 between Argentina, and they didn't have many roads there, so it took them a long time to actually move things across to the main warehouses. So they'd have a ship that would go around the island collecting all the wool from all the farms. So they'd go on the jetties and just like and load them from there. So they were all based very much close to the sea. But in recent times, because they've got a lot more roads there now, which the army built, they do the warehousing now is in Stanley, so it's centralised, and all the shipping goes out of Stanley now. And when we go to visit the farms, to go see the farmers, we mainly go by on a small plane, so like an 8-seater plane. And I remember the first time that I went, so we took her from a decent airport, with a little airport, but it's each out of Stanley in this little plane, and we're flying over to the West Falkland Islands, and we're coming down, so we're about to land in about 5 minutes, and I'm looking, thinking, where's the airstrip? We're getting lower and lower, and I'm thinking, where is it? And all of a sudden, there's a guy in the Land Rover. He comes out and he goes right round the field where all the cows are, gets rid of all the cows, and goes straight down and lands in the field. I've never seen anything like it. And then we've landed, and then they come out in the Land Rover, and then they get in the Land Rover, and then there's this little tin hut, this little sign up, and it says Terminal 1. It just looks like a hut that you'd be in. But the other way to go between the islands, there's actually a little ferry that people go on as well. And the first time I went out, I was amazed because we were followed by dolphins, and it's the first time I've ever seen a dolphin. Oh yeah, and honestly, and I was there looking at them, I was tearing up, and the pal that I was travelling with said, what's wrong with you? He said, I think I've just got a bit of but the wildlife out there is absolutely amazing. I mean, with the penguins and all the falcons, everything, it's amazing.
How many sheep have they got?
Sheep-wise, I can't tell you exactly the sheep number, but they've got around about 1.7 million kilos of breezeable.
Wow.
And I think because the merino sheep, they can have around about 4 kilos, or some of them 3-4 kilos.
Right.
But in the Falkland Islands, because of where they are, they don't really have a market for meat, whereas in the UK, the farmers are really, it's about the land values and things like that for the meat. But there they don't, so it's all about the wool. And that's why over the last years, for them the most important thing is to get the maximum return on their clip, so they go for more for the merino sheep. But they were, in the past they were always worried about obviously the survival rate of the sheep, because some of the merinos aren't just as hardy, so in the past they had like Corriedales there, then they went a bit finer onto Polworths, and now they're crossing the Polworths with some of the merinos and getting some fine wools. I mean, probably the finest off the first clip wools are probably, I think the finest I've seen is about 17 micron, which is really, really fine. When you think of cashmere can range from 16 to 18. So so it's some really fine wool, but the majority of it still is round about 23, 24 micron.
And how often do you get over there?
Well, we used to go once a year.
Yeah.
But it's nice to go, but it's just a long flight, because you're talking about, I think the first leg is probably 8 or 9 hours, and then stop for refueling the Ascension Islands, spend a couple of hours there, and then you've got another 8 hours going flying into Mount Pleasant, which is the military base there. But sometimes the worry always is, if it's too windy, you can't land, and at the last minute they say, well, we're going to divert you diverted to Chile. So that's, you can't set up on the Ascension Islands until the wind's gone. Because,
And how long have you been, when's the first time you kind of went over? Because this is a family business for you as well, isn't it?
Well, I think dealing with the Falkland Islands for probably at least 20 years. But I think I went in the last, probably went 12 years ago. Just to meet all the farmers and like I said, build that close connection with them.
How much do you take from the Falklands?
It can be anything from about 3 to 4 containers, and then a container you get 20 tons. So it could be 60 tons, 80. Decent amount, and like it's high value things as well. So it's high value, but quite a lot of the Falkland wool, because they've got such a big military presence in the Falkland Islands. I think there's, whereas you've got like 3,000 residents there, you might have 3,000 military presence there. So there's always the military ship that comes backwards and forwards, the MOD vessel, and sort of come back on the MOD vessel.
What, the fuel containers do?
Yeah, some of them do, yeah, they come with the MOD vessel.
So you hitch on there.
But the problem we had recently, well, the problem that's the problem we had recently, but one of the issues recently was that the MOD vessel that went to the Falkland Islands was on its way there, was diverted because it was needed to collect military hardware to go for the...
in Russia.
Yeah. So there's a lot of wool left out there still.
I think that's one thing that's interesting about, like, is it's a real global, I think until I started going to the Wool Board more, I didn't quite realise how global it was, like the fact that actually, like the majority of this country's wool gets bought by China, and then there we are buying wool from the Falklands to use here, so it is a real, like, global commodity.
Yeah, you know, with regard to the amount of wool, because I mean, the merino wool, I mean, I think about 70% of merino wool went to China, but probably in the last 12 months, things are going back to Europe.
Yeah.
A lot of people in Italy, where they produce a lot of the merino wool and merino yarns, they're getting busier and busier because obviously the cost from China to get the containers over to Europe has gone up, and people want things turning around quickly now. And you know, it's all about response time. So there's a lot of business that's coming back now to Europe.
Isn't it also that the Chinese workers aren't as prepared to work for as little as they were working for?
Quite right too, to be honest.
And it's nice to see. I went to China probably 20 years ago when we were looking at production out there, and I mean the conditions were terrible. I mean, it was sad to see it, you know. And but like I say, I think thank goodness that the standard of living has increased and people won't do those jobs now because they've got options.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember the first time I went, I saw there was a line of guys in the scouring mill, and they had the greasy bales onto hand carts, and there was just must have been about 20 of them, and they were just going down through the mill. And I said to the guy that was with the interpreter, I said, right, we've got a fork truck. And he said, well, you see the guys here, they're cheaper than the fuel that goes into the fork truck. And that's going back but that's going back quite a long time ago. So it's sad to see. And I mean, they were like small villages. You know, I mean, they had like easily 4 or 5,000 people working there.
Would you reckon we'd ever get back to our own manufacturing bases?
I'd love to see it, but I mean, obviously we need the government help to do that. I suppose we can actually probably do that now because we can subsidise a bit more, can't we?
I mean, I grew up in spinning mill.
Yeah.
Where are they now?
There will be.
Training people up as well, though, isn't it? You can't kickstart an industry like that overnight. I mean, for us to get, just in our tiny mill, get people with experience and knowledge is impossible, so we've got to train them up. So, and then you look at all the technical colleges and universities that used to run the courses, they've all gone. So you can't do the apprenticeship through what you used to do, through the colleges, and they would send the young people in to train up. They can't do it. So where are you going to get your skill base from? It's gone, you know. So there's a big problem, and it's you know, it's not just about investment in machinery, it's skills and workforce and people who want to do it as well.
I see people like that saying everybody should go to university, which is nonsense.
Everyone should be able to follow a skill and a path they want to.
Yeah.
So I mean, but they have to have the facility at the end of it to have a job. So you know, the two go hand in hand. And, you know, we can't just kickstart things by pulling out of Europe and expecting us to have a manufacturing base. It's nonsense.
And when you look at the infrastructure you need, because to regard textiles, you need, like I said, you need all the dyes there as well. You need
it's a whole chain of things. Of course it is.
It's huge, really, when you think about it.
I mean, one goes, it has a knock on to the next one, has a knock on to the next part of it. It's a whole process, and you're relying on all these people being there. You know, if we lose scourers, what do we do?
Yeah, I mean, if the scourers went, then we couldn't operate anymore, you know. So
if the dyers went pop, what do we do?
And it's got smaller and smaller over the years have gone as well.
There's been a resurgence of late. And, you know, you've got more small craft mills starting up, and some of the ones have made investments up north, and some of the mills, like Laxton's and Europa and things like that, aren't they? But they're not enough, is there, really?
No, I mean, there is one to do some big volumes. There again, they're reliant on the infrastructure there, so it's like as if the dyer goes, what do you do? Or the scourer goes, what do you do?
Yeah.
So it's all closely connected, really.
I went to a sustainability conference in textiles a couple of weeks ago in London, and all the companies were complaining that there was, the skills weren't there. All the people they got were the older generation, the young ones weren't coming in. And the universities, as you say, everybody's encouraged to go to university and become designers, not to be engineers in the mills and things, or whatever the skill is you need. And they need to address that, or else we're not going to have any industry.
I mean, we've been very lucky, and we've had some really good staff around the door that are young and ambitious and get it and want to stay and do it. But you could train somebody up for a few years and then they've gone. And we have had that happen to us.
The other problem we've got is even in secondary schools and primary schools, the schools do not want to spend money on practical subjects. They don't like buying art materials anymore. They don't like buying. I remember using a hacksaw when I was 4 years old in reception. They were in the cupboard for us to use.
I say.
Most. Oh, great. Well, my dad bought me a craft knife age 10, so I've still got all my fingers on fire. But now when I was driving school buses, a lot of the kids, like even if they're doing projects, they have to take their own stuff in. And the schools the teachers used to say, that there was hardly any trips for the arts, it was all on the geography, the textbooks. And the art teachers at one school we used to do a lot of work on were worried about the jobs because they said they're cutting funding to the art department and the design and technology department. So even in the secondary schools, they don't have the tools, basic woodworking tools now, and schools are not, they just want everybody in heads and books.
I grew up in that era where you did woodwork, metalwork and everything else.
But it's the same with, I have an HND or an HNC, I'm not sure. I have a degree and I also have an HNC. And I was then told when I got my HNC that it was a lower degree. And I said, I beg your pardon, it's an HNC, calling it, it's a practical qualification.
There was a sort of snobbery attached to the whole degree thing. I did do a degree, but I did a degree in textiles. So, and then at the time I did mine in Leicester, you could do it in spinning and knitting, and you had a couple of labs set up which were like small mills. So I learned how to use machinery and the theory of it. You can't do that course now, it's all been scrapped, it's all gone.
Was it Ruth from Wingham Wool? She did her A-level in spinning, you can't do that anymore.
Right, there you go.
I do think it all just stems from interest though, doesn't it? And actually, that's one thing that is magical about the internet, is actually, if you put that stuff up there, then people who are interested will find it. And it is such that's definitely my personal favourite thing about the internet, is literally you can learn how to do anything yourself on YouTube. And that is just, it's incredible. And so I think, obviously it's about educating people and making that possible. We do try and offer internships for people as well. But I think it really is going to just take more people in the yarn industry just offering internships and kind of trying to do it in a bit more of a DIY way, I guess. But where there's interest, people will figure it out and keep passing those skills along, I mean, it would obviously be nice to have a bit more support from the government, but well, it was easy. I mean, we got European money. See, I guess I just can't imagine that, because I've just never we got a 40% intervention rate to buy some of our machinery, which we wouldn't have been able to do without it. And that was European money. So I do wonder what sort of funds our government's going to put up to match that sort of thing. That's a scary thought, isn't it? And it was all to do, our funding was all to do with not just giving us money, we had to create jobs with it. So it's all connected, and we did, and we have done, and it's grown and created more jobs. So, it does work, but you need a government that can see that, and we haven't got one. Sorry,
That's a nice cheerful note to end on.
I did that. I realised there's silence in the room. All the Conservatives leave now. I imagine most of you have probably been on a mill tour either kind of this
this weekend or previously. But if you do have any kind of...
Yeah. Who's got a badge?
You've got your badge.
Through the mill.
But if there are any more like technical kind of spinning questions or any knitting, yarn, design related questions, yeah, fire away.
I've got one for John.
Oh,
I asked Juliet and she said that's one for John.
That ain't the room now.
There's an exit door right there.
I was very interested in the mill tour yesterday. And one thing I came away with, and nobody could answer it at the mill, but they all said John's name, is why do you spin singles S and then ply them Z?
Oh, right, okay. Well, it is a convention, but most machinery that then uses yarn, not craft yarn, operates in a certain direction. So then the twist needs to be going in a certain way. That's true for certain machinery. So if it's twisted in the opposite direction, you're over twisting the yarn when it runs through. Simple as that, really.
So that's
Does that
like
make sense?
weaving and soft
Weaving,
machines.
Because it turned back on itself a bit tighter,
Yeah.
so it's not soft.
No, so the way it pulls through and drawn through a machine, you can twist it more.
It's just that hand spinners, you know, most hand spinners spin the other way.
I don't know why that is for hand spinning, whether it's a traditional thing, but they do reverse twist. We can reverse twist all our machinery, and there are certain lace machines where it has to go in the opposite direction. This is, you know, machinery that makes lace rather than, you know, just hand lacing, because it goes in the opposite direction. So then otherwise it over twists the wrong way. So they do that. So I think it's come about by an industry thing rather than anything else, that commercial spinners do that.
So do your machines go back to the old worsted way of spinning, like they used to do it north?
What, switch it round the other way?
Well, in Yorkshire and Yorkshire Dales and Bradford and whatever, they got the worsted, didn't they, up there? So the
Yeah,
machines
we're a
go-
We're a worsted
mill.
spinner.
We're worsted.
Yeah, we are totally
So
worsted.
worsted more for weaving, that's originally years ago. And the machines were based on that.
Well, his machines are from Yorkshire anyway.
Yeah.
They are from Yorkshire, the machines.
Yeah.
That's Ed's spinning.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's Ed's spinning.
Is it? I might stand corrected.
We're not very good with basic things like left and right.
It's S and Z.
That's Ed's spinning. That must be Zed's spun.
It's S spun, Z finish. Sure is. Someone's reversed machinery.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Any other questions?
It's S.
Sorry, it's a slightly messy question, but it's so interesting hearing about the interfacing between like you sorting out the different fleeces, you buying the fleeces, and then the kind of the selling customer facing end, the spinning of the yarn. And I think one of the things that I've been thinking about listening to you speaking is like, how have you had to develop between you new processes for protecting the kind of the breed specificity and the traceability of fleeces when you're talking about quite big amounts of wool going through a system that with the grading at your end you were talking about, it's more by the type of wool rather than the breed of sheep. So how have you navigated that with going, we're passing out this little bit that's going to be North X more, like those kind of...
Yeah, you get that.
You're just piloting a new thing, aren't you? So this is the perfect
we are piloting a new system, which therefore all the wool will be traceable back to the farmer, back to the producer, in the hope that it's going to create a better price, add more value to it. It's something we're looking into. I mean, they've had to develop this whole new system where all our number cards have got a barcode on, so once I do a clip, for instance, and I finish, and all the tubs are marked with the different cards for the grades, I scan it with a barcode scanner, it goes on the computer screen, it takes to weight, and then it goes off into the grade lines. And then when it gets packed, the packer scans the card again and it says, alright, that's Mr. Jones's wool of 60 kilos, so it'll go into that bale, and then, like I said, it will be pretty traceable within about 10 or 15%. That bale will be so-and-so's wool in there. So yeah, it is something piloting, but trying to create a new computer system right before your busiest time of year isn't the greatest thing. And yeah, they've had to sort of develop it in about 2 months, and if anyone knows anything about computer, making a whole new computer system, that is pretty ambitious.
Is it working?
No.
Well, you were fully analogue before that, though,
Yeah,
weren't you? You were doing it on bits of paper.
Yeah, write the grey stamp pen and paper, and that's, at the moment, that's still a very tried and tested way of doing it.
Until you lose a bit of paper.
Yeah, or you lose a pen.
So would I be able to come to someone like you and say, what wool can I buy that goes back to the South Downs National Park if I wanted wool from the park, living within the park, I wanted to buy from the park. Would you be my first port of call to say where, or the buyer, where would I go to say, who can tell me what wool is?
I think you could ring British Wool and they would probably tell you maybe if there's any. We've got a South Down project at the moment which is being used in bedding, so they make duvets because wool is obviously a very good natural insulator. So that South Down project, the lady who's running it, I can't remember her name, but she's pretty much Jessica Cross, is that I think she's called? Yeah, she sort of created this whole thing, and it's a very good thing. For instance, if somebody just wanted a couple of fleeces, you could come into the depot and we would sell those fleeces.
So come in on Monday now.
I can arrange.
I'll be there on Monday morning.
But yeah, if it's sort of hand spinning and local crafts and that, people are more welcome to sort of bring up, and if there's a specific type of fleece they want, we will try and sort of help you out and try and point you in the right direction if we haven't got it.
Because the fibre shed movement is promoting all of this sort of thing down where you live and have a radius around you to source everything.
From my understanding, I think the long-term goal, once it's been, it'll take a bit of time, but I think it was going to all then be on like a website database, and you could kind of search it by area.
Was that the
it was QR codes, and then so we're hoping that maybe in a couple of years you'll be able to do the same with all our yarn and tops as well. So that would be really nice. So
there is a
it's lovely.
New Zealand wool manufacturers that make outdoor clothing, and they're big.
Is that Icebreaker? Or?
Icebreaker. Who have on the tag in every garment. You can actually look it up on the computer and you can pin it down to A4. They say. It's good, Mark.
It is great, Mark. See pictures of the sheets. It's good. Through the marketing, I think consumers like that. If you just go into the store, you see the garment, you scan it. You know where it comes from, because origin is important,
We do know some of the farms.
Yeah, we get all of ours definitely from the West Country.
Yeah.
Because,
I know some of the farmers personally that provide the wool that goes in.
But it's always been more informal, I guess, hasn't it? So it'll be nice to actually be able to.
I think the nice thing about your business is that you buy from the local depot.
Yeah.
So you know where it's actually coming from.
Yeah.
It's within that certain radius.
Sure. Cool. Well, Any more questions? Or?
I wanted to ask Aaron actually, where you've got the red dye marks on the fleece, at what point do they get taken out?
That a little tiny bit of marking is not going to be a problem, because all these new paints now, they shouldn't contain any oil. They should all.
And a fugitive.
Yeah.
They're on the way when you wash them.
Yeah, so it should just wash out. Obviously, I've seen fleeces that are pretty colourful, and obviously then that wool has to be downgraded, because then the next process takes longer to wash. So.
Because it used to be awful stuff to get.
Yeah, it used to be oil.
Like really waxy.
Yeah.
Well, they used to add chemical to the scouring to remove that.
I'm going to say, there must be something in commercial scouring, it does not come out by hand wash.
No,
it still doesn't.
No.
Well, because obviously we haven't necessarily got time to rip off every bit of fleece that's got paint on, so we haven't ever had any sort of major comebacks from the scourers, because they would point that out straight away.
Well, during the scouring process as well, I've got pickers at the end of it, although it goes very, very quickly. My God, it's like this. try to get all the bits of paint and shine out and everything, you know, so it comes off the end of the dryer, you know, but yeah, they do remove it there as well.
Yeah.
Before it goes on to top making. During the comb, it combs out as well, some of the solid stuff. So.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming, everyone.